I wish all of you a very good evening, and I welcome you to the first Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel CRPF Memorial Lecture. On behalf of the Director General of the Central Reserve Police Force, Shri K. Durga Prasad, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking out the time to make it to this glorious event. We are grateful that you came, and on this very important occasion, please allow me to give you a small background regarding the event and why it was conceptualized. Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel is considered to be the founding architect of the CRPF. It was Sardar Patel, the then Deputy Prime Minister and the Home Minister of India, who had envisioned the reorienting of this force and the necessity of such a force. He foresaw a multi-dimensional role for it in tune with the changing needs of a newly independent nation. He introduced the Central Reserve Police Bill in the Parliament, and the CRPF, as one of the armed forces of the Union, came into being in 1949. The force was presented colours on behalf of the President of India on the 19th of March 1950 by Sardar Patel. Today is the eve of the raising day of the CRPF, and it is an ideal occasion to begin celebrations of the tradition of the CRPF through a memorial lecture in the name of Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel. The first Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel CRPF Memorial Lecture will be delivered by Shri K. Vijay Kumar, Senior Security Advisor to the Ministry of Home Affairs, on left-wing extremism, and the topic of the lecture today will be Emerging Internal Security Dynamics and the Future Role of the CRPF. I would also like to inform each and every one of you that for the very first time for CRPF, the lecture is being webcast live. So anyone, anywhere in the world can watch this event happening on their screens. It could be their laptop, it could be their smartphones, it could be their tablets. All one has to do is be online and click on the link, and this entire event can be watched live. So let us commence this evening. I request all of you to kindly rise for the CRPF anthem. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. CRPF to kindly welcome our speaker of the day, Shri K. Vijay Kumar, with flowers. Can we have an applause, please? Welcome address.
Senior Security Advisor, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, and former DG CRPF, DGs of the CAPFs who have graced the occasion, former DGs of CRPF and former senior officers of the CRPF, distinguished officers on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all on this historic occasion of the inaugural Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel CRPF Memorial Lecture. I wish to express our deep gratitude and appreciation to Sri K. Vijay Kumar for accepting our invitation to deliver the first Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel Memorial Lecture on the internal security dynamics and the future role of CRPF. The Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel CRPF Memorial Lecture has been instituted on the eve of the 77th anniversary celebrations of CRPF, and it's proposed to be an annual feature coinciding with the Raising Day celebrations of CRPF. The theme and vision behind this initiative is to carry forward the legacy and vision of the Iron Man of India, Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel, the founding architect of CRPF. It will also be a tribute to our martyrs who laid down their lives and made it possible to make this organization what it is today. Ladies and gentlemen, no nation can aspire to be stable, peaceful, and strong if the nation is internally unstable. In the Arthashastra, Kautilya had propounded that internal threat is like a lurking snake in the grass, hiding in the grass. The most dangerous enemy is the enemy within. Therefore, the task and responsibility of CRPF as a central armed police force becomes highly significant in order to create a stable and internal environment. India is today facing internal security challenges of an unprecedented dimension. Northeast is facing insurgency and secessionist movement in 5 out of the 7 states. Heartland India is facing left-wing extremism that has been termed as the most potent threat faced by the country post-independence. J&K is facing turbulence created by separatist forces aided by an unfriendly neighbor. Radicalization of population and the threat posed by ISIS are posing serious threats to this secular fabric of this nation. The nexus between the criminals, drug traffickers, and terrorists have opened another front across the length and breadth of our national boundaries. In such a challenging environment, the responsibility to ensure peace, stability, and development heavily rests on CRPF as a central armed police force. Ladies and gentlemen, security is no more restricted to deployment of forces and use of weapons. It is fought and won in the minds of leadership. Clear identification of emerging challenges, threats, and employment of resources as per the law of the land has assumed great significance. We are operating in a very transparent environment, and we must remember that our actions while dealing with security challenges are being viewed critically by the nation and the global community. As a force, we have to ensure that we remain ahead of the curve to prevent, mitigate, and eliminate threats before they manifest. We have to be dynamic, innovative, and proactive. Therefore, we have to develop our own concepts of operation, doctrines, and strategy to deal with emerging internal security dynamics. Today, as I stand before you, the nation is looking up to us to create a safe and secure environment for prosperity and development of India as a modern nation. Having said that, it's also my pleasure and privilege to welcome another legendary figure who needs no introduction, and who is none other than Sri K. Vijay Kumar, former Director General of CRPF and the present Senior Security Advisor in the Ministry of Home Affairs. Sir, thank you so much for agreeing to be the first speaker at very short notice of this inaugural Sardar Vallabh Bhai Patel CRPF Memorial Lecture today. Just like the CRPF owes its existence to Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel, it owes a lot to Sri K. Vijay Kumar, a visionary and a founder figure who gave CRPF a number of modern training facilities which did not exist earlier, but today, which have turned out to be a great force multiplier towards our operational preparedness to meet new emerging challenges being faced by the force and the nation. The Institute of IED Management at Pune, through which now we are bringing out batch after batch bomb disposal units which are doing human service to the force. The CSJWT at Belgaum, which is our basic training arena for the Cobra. The DBTS, the Dog Breeding Training School at Taralu, again another force multiplier for the force. The RF Academy of Public Order at Meerut, the Training of Trainer School at Dharampur, the Catering School and the IT School at Bangalore, and a number of other training facilities created as a sector weapons and tactics institutes called Swati. Today they are called the ANTS, Anti-Naxal Training Schools, in Ambikapur, Jagdalpur, Bijapur in Chhattisgarh, Musabani in Jharkhand, Salboni in West Bengal, where today Cobra Battalion is stationed, Koraput in Orissa, another Cobra Battalion station there, and Chandrayangutta in Hyderabad, which turns out our trainers for Cobra schools, Baracheti in Bihar, all of them were his brainchildren. These are all institutions raised yesterday, but today will be the backbone of the CRPF's operational preparedness. This was foreseen by him, and he went about raising them one after another. These force multipliers were infancy when Sri Vijay Kumar hung his boots after superannuation. But today, 4 years down the line, these institutions have grown in strength, infrastructure and capabilities, and providing the tactical and technical superiority required by a counterinsurgency force like CRP to dominate our adversaries who are always bringing surprises in their nefarious designs in the battlefield. Although he retired as DG CRPF, the force continues to get his patronage and support as he now sits in the ministry and continues to look after the interests of the force. He knows the CRPF inside out. The force continues to relish his patronage through his support, experience and love for us. We could not have asked anyone better than Sri K. Vijay Kumar to deliver the inaugural lecture. Now I request Sri Vijay Kumar, former DG CRPF and Senior Security Advisor MHA on left-wing extremism, to kindly deliver the inaugural talk. Mr. Vijay Kumar.
Let me first address Mr. Durga. Thank you for calling me over here. And Mr. J.K. Sinha, the pioneers of CRP, who have done tremendous work much before me and gave me the baton to take over. Prakash Mishra, Rakesh Jaruha, and Maheshwari, my colleague, and my batchmate Malhotra. My stock in the batch is pretty low. Tell those guys my best wishes. And Meera, the chief of BPR&D, Surendra, Vivek Dubey Pachnanda, and Mr. Bhagat, Sunil Kumar Sinha, and the veterans of the CRP. I can see Chibar there. I think I see Mr. Sipal Singh and a whole lot, and the rest of you. I am filled with profound humility and boundless pride as I stand here. The very familiar, friendly faces that I see erases all self-doubt that till now assailed me of my age, wisdom, or any other qualification, as I broach the weighty subject involving a great man and a great force. I hope to ride on the wave of sympathy and affection, the same one you gave me when I headed the force. I thank Durga once again. To speak of a great man like Sardar in one breath and in another of a mighty force like CRP is a daunting privilege. Their destinies indeed seemed intertwined. In fact, CRP got its first boost thanks to Sadar Patel. On a cold morning in 1981, our breaths and words turning within inches of our mouth and noses into eyes, we had stood before a remote memorial with our arms reversed to salute the memory of CRP, Deputy Superintendent of Police Karan Singh and team. 20 of them had gone down to a Chinese ambush. The epiphany, this one etched on granite in a Kohima grave, written by John Maxwell Edmonds. For your tomorrow, we gave our today, came upon my memory. In the business world, there is something like this called the sweat equity. In great forces like CRP, we are in the business of life and death. There is sweat equity, but there is something called the blood equity. After all, a person like Clausewitz mentioned that blood is a currency of war. And that is how CRP, when CRP says our medal tally is 1,500 plus, and we have lost so many men in various types of battles inside and outside, we at once know the pedigree of the force, and our every nerve and every sinew in our being goes taut, and we are impelled to stand up and salute the soul of the organization. CRP's sweat and blood equity in our nation building is beyond any parallels. Sardar Patel had a tremendous foresight in security, especially internal security. He stitched up a patchwork quilt of 650 states and plus, which made up of 2/5 of our territory in space and 1/4 of the population, sending CRP to every nook and cranny, Kathiawar to Junagadh to Hyderabad, then Goa, making erstwhile Crown Reserve Police Force, affectionately later called Chalte Raho Pyare Force, an indispensable instrument of New India, a powerful amalgam, armed glue that can wield a lathi at one moment, a rifle the next, and a bazooka the moment later. There is a poignant anecdote of Sardar Patel chatting up with a CRP constable. The lone constable was protecting something near Chandni Chowk in post-riots of 1948 or 49. And he asked him one or two questions, and our CRP Jawan was unshaken. He was untempted. He was beyond. He was like a yogi, an armed yogi standing there in khaki. The faith Sardar Patel reposed in the force, CRP had vindicated again and again. It was guarding Lord Mountbatten's residence, and he had a personal good word to say to Sardar, never leave them. Sardar never left the CRP. While in Sardar Post, the 4 companies were holding up a brigade under Sardar Karnail Singh, this is reminiscent of what happened 2,500 years ago under a Spartan general called Leonidas. In the mountain passes, the Spartan army, on a ratio of 1:250 or even more, they held the mighty Persians away. There is another place in Vietnam where one Sergeant Howard has been epitomized. He has been praised and extolled for holding on against the Viet Congs. This was indeed not a police work, it was like an army battle, is what the big people mentioned. No wonder a prince of one of the princely state, one of the rulers of the princely state, was craving for just a platoon of CRP, and he said that would do, they would do, and I'll be able to uphold the law and order. That was the might and power of CRPF. CRPF's journey is like a guided tour of a nation's troubled spots. Chambal to northeast, Punjab to J&K. Its sitrap is a barometer of the scrambles, configurations, and conflicts. It's a touchstone of our internal security. Where there is dearth of and a quest for peace, that is where CRP is. Earlier on, VP Menon mentioned of CRP as the only force the state had. In that sense, it had mothered or midwifed all the other forces, if you may. Menon also added, but for the discipline, efficiency, and devotion of duty of its officers and men, it would not have been able to maintain order particularly. CRPF Jawan, mostly ex-army and some from the Meena Corps and many from the Punjab Musalman troops, they made up the bulk of the force, and the pay was 20 rupees. The price of 1 sovereign of gold was 25. And this was the highest pay given to the policemen then, 3 rupees more than what the Ajmer got at 17. And the best of the Lee Enfield rifles, 303, 50% of the force got 303. Today is a moment we should remember people like Major Pert of 2x2 Punjab Regiment, its first IGP, Mr. P.L. Mehta, and later DG Kanetkar. Now I will mention to the part 2 of my speech on the leadership and center of gravity of a force. A force like CRP is much more than an aggregation of sections, platoons, companies, battalions. Mostly the men, even officers, join without knowing what. But once inside, the churning takes place. Leadership is important at every level, be it platoon or the sector. The commandant ensures benchmark, standardization. But the man closest to the barracks is the company commander. And I believe most of you are the potential company commanders whom I am addressing today. I am very glad to have met with a bunch of youngsters who are going to take the torch forward. Because you are living very close, your ears on the ground, you are got the pulse of your men. Sometimes, when things are not good, as it happened in US after the Vietnam fiasco, the morale had dipped and the mood was not okay. There was no chatter and laughter in the barracks. So much so, when for the night barrack checks, the commander, company commander, he had to go armed with guards who carried baseball bats to ensure his own security. A study by Cornell University showed that two groups with equal skills, led by two different leaders, produced two different results. One leader knew who all around him were brilliant. The other knew that he was brilliant. This was something like the difference between Gladstone and Disraeli. In meeting one, you came out with the feeling that you are good. In meeting another, you came out with the feeling that the other man is good and you are stupid. It is an important quality of leadership to bring out the best in the men. The challenge for the force like CRP is to how to get the best out of its troops. Hundreds of studies say, not that satisfied men would be productive, but productive men would be satisfied. How does one make a person productive, especially when you make him march the harm's way? One study listed 14 items, some carrots, some sticks, as to why a soldier embraces the dangers, knowing fully well it is suicidal. Of the 14 reasons, only a very few were sticks, like he will be shot on the back if he is shell-shocked, or for cowardice, or he will be court-martialed. Beyond this, most of the other incentives were carrots all the way, just like peer esteem, a boss's pat, and so on. But the number one reason always was, my buddies are counting on me, I can't let them down. A feeling that I'd fight for the guy on my right and on my left. Another thing a force builds in is discipline, in the form of drills, SOPs, norms, etc. Right from the morning bugle call till the lights off, besides of course ducking brick bats and skirting a few mines, one buddy eating and the other watching. An SMS call from home can come get you crashing. You got hardly anything to do and all the time looking on over your shoulders. It's a very different life. Some choose this job, but some did not know what they have chosen. But once in, they bond like brothers. Tight friendships are said to be born around tight corners, and CRP is full of tight corners. A study says ex-buddies of the Israeli army made up for the best of the startups. They became iconic. One reason was their understanding was perfect, and they were telepathic in their actions. I read years ago about a thing which I am going to recount. This is an interesting thing. At the end of it, it's like a half puzzle, and it will not be very difficult. What is this thing? This thing can move across a country at 3 miles to 10 miles an hour. When it moves, it stretches out like a snake in a line about a mile long. When it rests, it curls up, facing outward, ready to fight, in a circle about 300 yards across. If it rests for very long, it begins to disappear down into the earth. On the battlefield, when it is fighting, it eats over 2,000 cans of sea rations a day, drinks about 507 gallons of water, and it never sleeps. When this thing attacks, its destructive power is awesome. It can come down from any direction, day or night. It can hit head on, but usually it won't do that. It will instead send out pieces of itself in the night to sense out the weak and unprotected places ahead of time. Then at dawn it will strike. It kills mostly by firing steel projectiles into the vital organs and so on. By now, you must have all guessed we are talking about the company which you guys should be very proudly heading in a few months from now. What happens when you get into the company? You fight for the company, not necessarily for the king always, as the axiom is. The sublimation of an individual's personality into a group's is referred to identity fusion. That is precisely what happens. This is what I mentioned to you when I said about carrots and sticks. It is then they stick out together in the thick and thin, like in Sadar Post, like reflected in a military example cited by General Audrey Red Newman. I will cite that order now. This is a very interesting order, one of the finest I have ever read. The order was to the machine gun section leader, dated 13th March 1918, against a German offense. Special order number 1, section 1, order 1. Position will be held and all section remain until relieved. Number 2, enemy cannot be allowed to interfere with your operations. Number 3, if the section cannot remain alive here, it will remain here. Number 4, shell shock or surrender, he will remain here dead. Number 5, if all your guns are blown off, you resort to military grenades and other novelties. You can find out what novelties. When you are at wit's end and in the last strand of your life, you will become very, very innovative. Finally, the position as stated will be held. I have never seen a more unambiguous order on do or die, rather do and die. A force has many parameters. More than all, a force stands out by what it can do, what it can perform. I'm talking about the operation. But performance is only a tip of a spear. The spear itself consists of morale, food, gadgets, leadership, more than all, training and leadership at various levels. Will, skill, teamwork, honed long by leaders, make a team confident and great. But the challenge is to raise the percentage of performers. That is your challenge always. I would cite an analysis. This was by General S.S.A. Marshall, who did a research on World War II. And in one of his studies about a rifle company, I'm talking about the percentage of performers, he said, when everyone ought to have fired, only 1 out of 6 fired. If everybody had complied, they would have had a target acquisition 6 times more. So this challenge of making everybody perform is going to be an eternal one. You have all led teams, and you would have seen this. Like a mother knows that all her kids are dear to her, but not all of them are equal. Like you know the 5 digits of your hands are not similar. You also know the boys, the teams you inherit are not identical in skills and knowledge. The leader's challenge is not in taking pride of any way front runner, but in pushing the laggards to greater heights. Having spoken of leadership and training as the center of gravity of any great force, I will briefly dwell on the national security and internal. Pardon me if my tone suddenly turns pompous. It is said national security is a sum of external and internal security. It encompasses economy, diplomacy, human rights, infrastructure, energy, military, and so on. But internal security is perhaps the most important component. Kautilya's integration of state policy, Chief of CRP mentioned about Kautilya, and he has got, his doctrines are respected throughout the world. It didn't attain the recognition, didn't get the recognition Sun Tzu or Machiavelli or the other philosophers, the Western, Greek, Roman, and others got. But nevertheless, Arthashastra is slowly coming of age, and people are now recognizing that Arthashastra has covered many topics said by many others. So he mentioned that integration of national power, administration, finance, the art of war, the state policy, and so on for a synergized application of national power. I would briefly touch upon where we stand. No big country is loved by its neighbor. We are no exception. India, for its geography and history, will have to pay a price. We are a plural society, a liberal democracy. This is our strength, also our fault line. Many groups and with many aspirations. This is why the Maoist, in the document of 2004, which came out in 2006, after MCC and PWG merged, they said India is a prison house of contradictions, and which I want to exploit. The consolidation which Sadar Patel hoped was going on at an electric speed is yet work in progress, and CRP has got a job to do in injecting an element of certainty and continuity. In peacemaking or keeping, reduction of ambient uncertainty in a world of WhatsApp or Instagram is a huge challenge. An attack 10,000 miles away sounds like at your backyard. A few years ago, a resolute bunch of 19 guys with only box cutters between them made a nation go to war on terror. The nature of threat is morphing by the day. One can trouble a heartland and raise the threat quotient within without violating the national borders. To add to this, there are troubles from within. The regions themselves can wrestle over resources like water, land, and clash over ideas and ideologies. This does not fit into the four neat boxes which even Kautilya conceived those days. External, 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 internal, internal, external, internal, internal. These are the kind of things he made it into boxes, and that almost explains the different kind of problems we are grappling with. But this seems to even baffle that. External and internal security is getting indistinguishable, increasingly. Each day, making the internal security budgets of some countries exceed even the defense budget. The battlefields where one could see the enemy's eyes were long ago. Today the battlefield is fluid. The enemy can be anonymous, probably caught and taught over the internet. In some, the internal hemorrhage and tumors from such unwarlike maneuvers causes more exasperation than what a routine enemy could have done yesterday. The downside of a global village is that the transactions of the transnational societies, corporations, internet interest groups, and so on, are not amenable to traditional controlling authorities. Take bitcoins. Technology has upturned many things. Facebook can fan a flame of fanaticism. The seeds of hate or intolerance can be sowed in ether at electronic speeds. Indeed, the New York Police Department chalked up a recent spike in hate crimes, suicides, and homicides to social media. So we are on a moving platform, one that moves very, very rapidly. I use the word trouble in the heartland. Moyes talk of encircling cities by exploiting the pools of discontent in the towns. In an ecology where the routine wars, the conventional wars are almost discounted, but the hyper-nationalism continues and intense security competitions persist between nations, there is this special allurement for small actions by small armies. So therefore, and the returns of investment are very high. One more reason for a force like ours to be on alert. But the fact that internal and external security may coalesce, and there is no word called internal security in the list of police powers handed over to the state government under list 2 of the Constitution, Schedule 7 and so on. There is an expert called V. Balachandran, ex-R&AW officers, who is based in Bombay. According to him, the Constitution simply copied the 1935 Government of India list, where the idea was to make the provinces stronger and to make the center weaker. According to Mr. Balachandran, this was a deliberate act of subterfuge by our erstwhile rulers. I don't have my personal views on this, but this is what he says. As a result, CRP nearly got threatened to be broken up into bits and pieces, but Sardar Patel stopped it. There was a suggestion that the CRP can be given away to the state. Thank God it did not happen. During at times where there was any concept of federal police or federal investigation, the only federal investigation we later on got was NIA. At that time when federal police was being thought about, CRP was somehow spared. Without detracting from the main theme, let me make 2 points here. One, that many of the state police forces are brilliant, but they can do well with the standardization of knowledge and skill sets. Because a citizen of India is entitled to certain policing standards wherever he is, or the standards of policing. Number 2, this is very important. The police reforms are essential fulcrum, essential foundation base for the internal security. It should come in early. That is where the police foundation and such interest groups are passionately drumming up support. Reverting back to the topic of CRP in the dynamic environment, in war, operations other than war and conflict containment. The idea is to minimize own losses and the collateral. As the saying goes, minimize own losses, maximize technology, reduce the use of your own flesh. CRP deals with the entire spectrum of violence, from stone to sharpnels. Hence, a non-stop scouting of non-lethal arms bazaar should be part of a bread and butter. Non-lethal actually is a misnomer. Sub or less lethal is more like it. North Carolina coroner accounted for 1 death due to pepper spray. And in fact, 2,500 years ago, ground pepper was used by Chinese for dispersing mobsters. And a painted rope was used by Greek to use for crowd control, because nobody would like to come in contact with the paint. Research is on to see whether the pheromones that would attract 1,000 ants in microseconds can be used. Whether stink bombs have already been tried, where more effective forms can be used. Some kind of sticky glue which cannot be washed for days can be thrown more than 100 meters, 200 meters. Already a lot of experiments have been given up and some are again started. The pellets we are talking about came up in 1970. The rubber bullet and the wooden pellet and the plastic bullet and so on, to tackle the Belfast mobs in Ireland. So much so it was hated that it became part of the folk songs in Ireland. The walls of Jericho, the Bible says, was brought down by acoustics, 7 days of drum beating. So acoustics, the powerful candlelight which will blind you but not permanently, there are many options which are being talked about. I noticed that yesterday DG had mentioned that he is further scouting the global market on what is available. Because you will be all the time under the hammer, you will all the time be commented on. So therefore we need to be absolutely sharp and smart. You have heard of the Black Hawk Down. In Mogadishu, the US lost heavily. They retreated. But they came back, this time with more technology. This time they did not shoot anybody. They shot invisible lights on all the perches of snipers, Somalian snipers. No Somalian sniper, because one fellow had a green on him, one fellow had a red on his head. He at once recognized it is being marked for departure, and none of them squeezed the trigger. So technology can be remote, magical, and can be of immediate relevance. But we need to apply it effectively. A good organization is the one which effectively navigates the frequent shifts and storms. The situation that CRP handled called for a bouquet of responses. Hence, a continuous scan on the horizon is a must. It is possible that our arsenal may span even slingshots to catapults. Why not? Ideas are important. Be it from the general or be it from the ground, be it from the constable or sub-inspector. Here I will stop and go for a short quiz. Did you know that when Genghis Khan, who like Alexander was one of the leaders who conquered the maximum part of the globe within those brief time, and in terms of DNA, the Mongol DNA is number 1 in terms of the number of imprint. He had the best post offices, but his pictures he never had his own picture revealed, just like Wolf, the famous leader of Stasi in East Germany. Genghis Khan was a tremendous general, but when he went to the war, he went with 6 ponies. And his ponies were all very small. And people initially thought, what is this Mongol ponies, what can they achieve? But then, why do you think he took 6 ponies? Anybody can guess? Anybody here who can guess and say why Genghis Khan took? I'm talking to the youngsters. If you haven't, you must go and read. We do not know whether it is son or the other general whom he favored or somebody else who gave the idea. The 6 ponies had one for himself, and he tied over a pony with silk thread or rope 50 yards so that he was man and the horse was one piece and he could ride 50 miles without a problem. When 14 miles, 12 miles, 50, 20 maximum was the maximum, he could ride double the time. And at times it is mentioned they could go even 80 to 100 miles. This may be a hype, but this is what the history says, some part of history. So 1 horse for him, and another as a spare where you can jump over the other and ride so that this will be less tired. 6 bows and different types of arsenal and ammunition. Second, for the family and kids, So it was like a separated accommodation moving along, or the GC moving along, or the battalion headquarters moving along. It was the entire Mongol. They never had anything except Mongol army and army supporters. There was no Mongol citizen. And if horse number 5 and 6 would become the breakfast or dinner, depending, for rotation. So he became the most effective. Who gave this idea? Nobody can now put a finger on. So the ideas would have come from anywhere. Similarly, you would have heard of a chap, again a good general, we may hate him. He came up to Somnath and sacked and went away. Muhammad of Ghazni. He must have made 15, 16 forays. In one foray he succeeded. He had to come across Thar desert and the nearest route was 1,000 miles. He calculated 1,000 miles, wretched time, and nobody can go back alive, and there are bandits along that route. So he had to take a route, and he planned 40 days of march, 25 miles per hour, 2 camels, not one for a soldier, 2 per soldier. Just like carrying extra ammunition, extra food, extra whatever, he carried an extra camel. So that is strategy, operational strategy, and superior tactics, superb tactics, all molded into one. I mentioned this to say that ideas, wherever it comes from, need to be encouraged. While I mentioned technology, I must also say there is a sense of wariness that technology should not overwhelm us. What is called artificial intelligence, humanoids, robotics, etc., the way it is going was frightening. Therefore, people like Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, Bill Gates had a conclave, the famous place. And they were discussing the power of future technology disruption. And the conclusion was, machines create jobs that machines themselves cannot do. Also, some jobs cannot be fully outsourced to machines. For example, a nurse cannot be replaced. I suppose a CRP chap cannot be replaced. A good cop cannot be replaced. But you can add on to a nurse or a cop more machines, more gadgets to make yourself more efficient and smart. But you should remain irreplaceable. Earlier I spoke of skill building. Then I spoke about keeping a tight eye on technology. Now I would like to emphasize the need for continuous updation. If you don't update, you are going to become outdated. You are going to become obsolete. And another organization may threaten us. This article was in Harvard Business Review. I read it 2 months ago. I quote Vijay Kumar. He says, like a software program that is continuous, the future is not a far-off point. It arrives in daily dose that must be noticed and understood. Only by working day by day can your enterprise respond resiliently when it encounters non-linear opportunities, or equally likely managing threats. In CRP's context, the ops and training nodes should talk to each other on a daily basis so that whatever happens on the ground is instantaneously drawn and passed on. I believe this dissemination is happening at much faster pace. It gladdened my heart to hear that. Now we will talk about the CRPF in future. Its spread, experience, heterogeneity, and size, CRP is matchless. It is unique. But only with new ideas and endeavors, we will remain nimble. I read an article by some military expert questioning, why should CRP have drones? CRP has no business. They are going to assist the state police, and CRP need not have these pilotless vehicles. Similarly, when CRP got the intelligence branch, it sought the intelligence branch, there are many who piled on and said, why should CRP have an intelligence branch? Why not? CRP should have the strongest intelligence branch. It has got GCs everywhere. So if your intelligence groups become very strong, you will become another appurtenance, another channel, another important conduit for calibration of information which would have been channelized through many other conduits and groups. We are not trying to cut the grass of any other turf. But this is important, that CRP has its intelligence branch in a much stronger way and more entrenched. For the CRP to be effective, central force, we need, while preserving the tradition, we should break the mold where we need to. Now I am going to suggest a very sensitive query that you may like to ask yourself. CRP should ask yourself, ourselves, how can CRP go out of business? how can CRP go out of business? I want you to think and suggest. Now, I am being absolutely unoriginal. I have copied this idea from a lady called Lisa Bodel of Future Think. She was asked to come into a company called Merck, the famous pharmaceutical company, to revamp. So first thing she did was, she asked the company, the people who are rooted in the company, who had worked the bandicoots, who are working for long, she said, how will you put your company out of business? Give me the best ideas. And on the basis of this gaming, she made out some formulations and policies, and Merck became stronger, I am told. So are we learning the right lessons on a daily basis? Are we listening to the problems and also solutions? Or are we like the 17th century shogun? You know, the shogun, famous dons were there. He had a suggestion box in front of his castle. The only problem was he rewarded good ideas, but he cut off the heads of those people who only made problems, only said about problems and cribbing and no solutions. So those fellows were decapitated. Our theatre-specific schools in the Northeast, J&K, LW and the General School, need to be really more vigorous. I believe it has become very active now, it has become hyperactive because we are in different theatres doing different jobs. More technology, better to see by the day and the night. My list is long. In a lighter vein, I am an advisor and it's very easy to advise, so I have to hold back. CRP has nearly 10,000 cooks and masala cheese and assistants. We need a similar number of technologists who need to be implanted within the force. I believe our communication branch is marching towards a direction. It should march much more vigorously and rapidly. It should become the technology wing. I do not know what is the title now, how they are called. It should become absolute technology wing. The CRP dog school should become the All India dog school for Belgian shepherds, because that itself is a branch, instead of trying to do everything together and creating problem. Similarly, the other forces can specialize on one particular breed, because our requirement alone, when I say our, I am still trying to believe that I am still with the force, 3,000 or more. Who can produce that? So we need to go for very special systems. The geese guarded Valentine whiskey factory. Dogs have been with us for more than 10,000 years. Dogs are found to be very useful in the war and peace. Dogs can sniff many things that you and I cannot. Why not have one platoon of dogs in every battalion, by surrendering, if necessary, the human? We surrender a little bit of human numbers for technology. We surrender a little bit for these canine friends. Why not? The IIT Pune school is doing a brilliant job. It should become the national center of excellence, and it needs much more support. A lot of syllabus revision has been done. A lot of things which are not really there, need to be there, has been taken out, and some more need to be taken out so that we can focus on the most important. Focus on the skills, 70% on doing for the constabulary level, 20% for the demonstration, and 10% alone what it is going to be. To stay nimble, an organization has to keep up an eternal vigil, not only for new ideas, new technology, but tactics and techniques. To manage a dynamic equilibrium of steadiness in the midst of change is not easy. We should have, like the army, like the GSG-9, like other best forces, a group of research and technology. A group which behaves like the US Navy, which has got a special team, an outpost in Silicon Valley. This team should be floating around because DRDO, despite the best intentions, have not been able to strengthen the low-intensity division opened about 5-6 years ago to our needs and our customs and our requirement. CRP is very adaptive. In this regard, when I'm talking about technology and planting, I have a suggestion which may look outrageous, especially since Meera is here, a dynamic officer who is heading the BPR&D. She doesn't, there is a crunch of manpower. And we have a huge manpower, 4,000 officers. No, which force has 4,000 officers? Maybe the German army those days. Why don't we lend 5 or 10 to her and every CIS a little bit? The best guys, not the pushovers, not the rejects, but the best guys who have seen the field, who have done well, and who have got some tech savvy. These kind of guys whose minds are open. There are plenty of them, I know. These brilliant people, some of them should be sent there on reputation, on some kind of arrangement, reputation you call it, or OD, or out doing duty, or whatever. So that organization becomes a little more dynamic. And we will be able to have that healthy osmosis of ideas. And mutually we will benefit. CRP is very adaptive and very versatile. fluently switching from Lathi to Bazooka to AGL and so on. Now, I am glad to tell you, I am going to conclude in the next 1 or 2 minutes. In 1998, in the alleys of Batmalu in Srinagar, in the beautiful valley of Kashmir, as the sun was going down, we were trying to flush out a militant. Cordons have been thrown, multiple cordons, which is a complex thing of many forces. I was the IG BSF then. BSFs stopped at a platoon level and they would not break anymore. There was this guy, CRP sub-inspector, who came by and he shredded very comfortably his troops into sections and he raised an eyebrow at me and asked any more, and he was willing to break it into bodies. I was amazed by the flexibility, adaptability, the adjustment of the force. That readiness, that eagerness to fit in, that very extreme adaptability is our strength. But these very qualities, if overdone, will make us brittle, and it's not a good thing. That is why I said, that is why I mentioned the things I was talking about, the spirit of the force, the value imbibing, the inculcation of ideas, the dynamic equilibrium, the leadership at every level, and team building and horizon scanning. For CRP, is just not a force. It has got many multiple forces within it. The Cobras, the RAF, the Women's Battalion, you name it. And the Meerut RAF, the Rapid Action Teams Institute, should become the #1 sub-lethal training institute of the nation. It needs to go far. We should put the best practices. So the best counter-insurgency practices should emanate from Cobra. And Cobra is a wonderful force. The cream is skimmed. And the best forces always poach on your resources. And this is something we should never grudge. Because if you are not qualified, if your buddy is qualified, you are fighting for the buddy on the left and right, you should have the spirit saying, I couldn't make it, let the good man make it. Everything about the force has got to be something superb, something superior, something much better than what is available elsewhere. That is the only way of handling the future disruptions. That is the only way you will not be threatened. CRP should never become, will not become, and it is not a routine force. It is a force within force, it is a universe by itself, and it is multiple forces contained in one. As I told you right in the beginning, it's not a set of the men who are now there. It's not a congregation, an assembly of men, the best men, the most disciplined men, men willing to die for the nation. It is much more than that. There is something, a library is not a collection of books. There is a spirit in the library. There is a special spirit within the force. I am talking about that spirit which we have to stand up and salute. I am talking about that spirit which makes you the man you are going to be tomorrow. I congratulate all the youngsters who had the unique luck to enter the CRP, and it is in your hands to see how your company can be superior to the company number Bravo or Charlie or Delta, where Alpha is Alpha and so on. At every level, when you become commandant, when you become DAG and so on. I have also once again acknowledged the presence of my dear colleagues and friends and rest of my erstwhile colleagues, and I thank you, Durga, for putting this trust in me and making me come here and stand before a crowd whom I really loved. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. And reiterate the ethos and vision of the organization. Shri K. Vijay Kumar has not just done that, he has also made some very, very critical and relevant points. He says that in a global village, in the era of WhatsApp and Instagram, the challenges that we face are also changing, and it is important for all of us to think out of the box and become more and more innovative. He's also talked about effective application of technology, and he says just as a good nurse cannot be replaced, a good cop also cannot be replaced, but what can be done is provide the cops and the nurse add-on gadgets, add-on technology. Very kindly, he has also said that today's live webcast is an example of how we are using technology to reach out to more and more people. Sir has stressed on the need for more and more technologists in the force, and he has also suggested a platoon of dogs in every battalion. That was great, sir. Thank you so much personally from me. Okay, so that was a great lecture, and right at the beginning in his welcome address, the DG CRPF said, in order to remain relevant for current and future challenges, a roadmap with a clear vision is imperative, and a clear vision can be envisaged on a strong foundation, which has as its pillars the history of the organization, its heritage, and a purposeful preservation of ethos and values. So once again, Shri K. Vijay Kumar, once again on behalf of the CRPF, on behalf of the Director General, thank you so much for that very inspiring and evocative speech. I'm sure all of you have benefited from it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, definitely something else, another presentation for you that will instill pride in all your hearts. The month of April refreshes the saga of Sardar Post in the hearts and minds of every CRPF man and woman. In April 1965, the Pakistan Army had launched Operation Desert Hawk against Indian border posts to establish claim over some Indian territories bordering the then West Pakistan. 4 companies of the 2nd Battalion CRPF were manning the Sardar and Tak posts in the Rann of Kutch, which is in Gujarat, along the international border of West Pakistan. On the 9th of April, at about 03:30 hours, an infantry brigade of the Pakistani Army attacked the Indian border posts of Sardar and Tak, held by the CRPF companies. The CRPF men resisted fiercely, fought valiantly, and repulsed the attack. 34 Pakistani men were killed and 4 captured alive by the CRPF. 8 CRPF men laid down their lives, 19 were taken captive by the army, the Pakistani army. The determination and valor of the personnel of the 2nd Battalion kept the might of the Pakistani Infantry Brigade at bay for over 12 hours. And this is a unique feat in the history of military battle, where a small contingent of paramilitary force personnel pushed back a determined attack by a full-fledged infantry brigade. To commemorate the supreme sacrifice of the valiant soldiers of the 2nd Battalion CRPF and to motivate the members of the force to live up to this example, 9th of April is celebrated as Vallabh Day. So all of you have just heard the story from me, but now, ladies and gentlemen, something better. We present to you a short audio visual on the Sardar Post. The challenges, but also the achievements and the role of the CRPF. Very, very inspiring. Thank you so much. It has been a wonderful evening, ladies and gentlemen, the eve of the raising day of the CRPF. The celebrations, of course, have already begun, I think, with this evening. And we have revisited its traditions, its glory, and all of us have been enlightened about its past, present, and thanks to Sir, its role in the future. I now request Shri Sudhir Pratap Singh, ADG Training, CRPF, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Security Advisor to the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, and former DG CRPF, Shri K. Vijay Kumar, DG CRPF, Shri K. Durga Prasad, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It was a proud privilege to listen to Shri K. Vijay Kumar, an authority on national internal security issues. His lecture was thoroughly informative, emotional, and inspiring. We would all agree with him that skill building, use of modern technology, and continuous upgradation, a coherent strategy is necessary to develop comprehensive response capabilities for the resolution of India's internal security challenges. We are proud of the fact that the CRPF has all along in the last 77 years played a pivotal role in restoring peace and helping maintain internal stability in the country. I am confident, sir, that the CRPF will never go out of business in times to come. I, on behalf of the Director General and all ranks of the CRPF, sincerely thank Shri K. Vijay Kumar for delivering the inaugural Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel CRPF Memorial Lecture. We could not have asked for anyone better than Shri Vijay Kumar for the inaugural lecture, who so well understands the history, the heritage, the ethos, and the capability of CRPF. I wish to thank DG CRPF, Shri K. Durga Prasad, for having steered the inaugural memorial lecture, which is now going to be held every year on 26th of July. I must also thank the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Truly, it has been our honor to host you this evening for this lecture. I want to profusely thank all our officers and men of the CRPF who have worked relentlessly to organize this memorable event. I would also like to thank all those who have worked behind the scene for their wholehearted support. Thank you very much, sir, and Jai Hind.
Let me just give you a little briefing about our speaker of the day in exactly a minute, and then I will request the DG to please hand over a memento to our speaker of the day. Our speaker of the day, Shri K. Vijay Kumar, is a 1975 batch IPS officer, and he has been IG BSF Kashmir between 98 to 2000. Just a minute, sir, just a minute. I think it's important for all of us to know. He was also Commissioner of Police, Chennai, and he headed the Special Task Force to nab Veerappan. All of you are aware of this, but I thought it's important to just remind you once more of, that we had the best person possible for the first Sadar Vallabh Bhai Patel CRPF Memorial Lecture. So he currently, of course, is senior security advisor to the Ministry of Home Affairs on left-wing extremism. He has held this post since 2012. I now request the DG CRPF, Shri K. Durga Prasad, to kindly hand over a memento to our speaker of the day.